What's up, everybody? I'm your host, Parker Bohan, and I am back in the virtual booth again this week. And our guest, man, I'm excited about this person. But before we jump into that, I just want to take a minute and say thank you to you, all the listeners out there who have been tuned in. I am always humbled by the feedback, the photos, the commentary. It's just been incredible and a bit overwhelming at times. So for that, thank you so much. None of this is possible without you. I also want to take a minute and thank our sponsor, Prenoth. They support the podcast. I'm so grateful to have them on board. They support us, so you should support them. Send them a shout out and a thank you. They're on board with the Blade Dive. All right, my guest today is Caleb Hamilton, and there have been a lot of people asking for Caleb to come on the show, so I'm honored to have him on the show. Caleb is from Maine and specifically grew up in and around Sunday River Resort. I would say more specifically, he grew up in the cab of his dad's snowcat. His dad is Scott Hamilton, also a legend in the operations world. Caleb developed a passion for ski resort operations early on, and really the magic piece that you either feel or experience through just snowboarding or skiing. And his passion really centered around the access to that, whether it was managing the snow or creating the access. Caleb really dove deep into developing that. We discuss his brand Destoy, his Alaska adventure, his time in Japan briefly, and of course his obsession with perfection and the GPS unit that was and is no longer. This episode is a deep blade dive into the culture of a team as well, so you're going to want to stay tuned. You know what to do. If you're at home, grab your favorite drink, kick your feet up, and if you're in the machine, turn up the volume.
Go ahead and give it the juice. Already.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of The Blade Dive. I am so stoked on tonight's guest. With me in the virtual booth is Caleb Hamilton, and if you don't know Caleb, he is he's a pioneer. I view him as a pioneer. Definitely a journeyman. Started out his career at Sunday River in Maine, spent time in New Zealand, and came back to the States to really contribute to Mount Hood during the summers and establish that program there. And Caleb, it's an honor, man. Thanks so much for taking the time and being on the show.
Yeah, of course, Parker. Thanks. I'm stoked to be here, man. Thanks.
Yeah, I guess when this whole thing started kind of taking shape, there were definitely some folks going, so are you going to talk to Caleb? Because you got to talk to Caleb.
Well, that's awfully kind of you.
Yeah, man. I thought it was too. And I was watching, I was seeing everything that you were doing for the most part that was put out through the magazines or the videos. And I think it was revolutionary. You were taking steps in directions that I think a lot of folks maybe weren't ready to admit that it was ahead of its time even. So hats off to you, man.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I appreciate that. I came up in beginning stages of the industry and got pretty blessed in my placement with Sunday River really pushing it early in the industry for having parks, and
super cool.
Yeah, had good people around me, so it's I'm stoked. I appreciate that.
Super cool. I want to do something a little different. I want to go with a special guest question to start the show off. It's been a really cool segment that we've introduced to the podcast, and I think I want to go that direction with you. So I will play it for you now. It is from Mr. Marshall Morona.
Caleb, it's been too long, buddy. I hope all is well. I've got two questions for you. My first question is, what is the wildest thing that you have seen during your time working at Mount Hood? And my second question is, if you were to go back and start your career over with the knowledge you have now, what changes would you make and why?
Oh, Marshall, miss you too, bud. So lots of crazy stuff at Mount Hood. It is a natural wonder that we even get to operate up there. It's a really special place, but the Craziest one. That's well, I think, well, maybe in my one of my first years, either the first or it must have been the second season I was there. We have this big cornice that we build the exit at that time for public park. It's called Otto Lang, and it's a big cornice, and it's kind of, we stack it out to kind of establish that road and try to compact it as much as we can during the winter, but it's a pretty gnarly zone until it gets built. And I was out there pushing one day, and sometimes you see these little cracks in the snow, and I don't know, you want to try to cover them, and I found out pretty quick the trick is to make sure you dig them out, because it was a huge hole underneath it, and I was blading across, and I fell in this giant hole, and I was just uh, sitting on my blade frame and the tiller frame. Thankfully, I was tilling, and it was a gigantic hole. I mean, definitely big enough to my snowcat to fall into, and yeah, I had to call for an operator at the time, Randy, to come over and dig around my cat and push in underneath me. And I was still pretty green at hood, so he jumped in and backed it out of the hole, and yeah, pretty well jumped the snowcat as it fell in. And there's no way to get enough snow underneath it to really support it. But yeah, if you're ever operating at hood, look out for those they look like tiny little cracks, man. And before you know it, it's a big old hole. So dig them out.
Crazy.
Yeah. And what would I do differently? I would be more open minded to, in the beginning anyway. I learned this lesson eventually, but um, build for your public, not for you. Build a park that the people around you can progress and grow on. Your community, to keep them stoked. Um, that is the secret, as far as I'm concerned, to um, building a successful program, is happy clients and involving the rider, and what you build.
I think that's a big takeaway. I think a lot of people can relate to that too, whether they've been in a situation like that. Maybe I'll bounce a
Mhm.
thought off you real quick. Do you think that means that there's maybe more opportunity for the individuals who are less experienced to kind of be involved with the construction process, so that maybe if that said individual doesn't have the mindset of building the park for the public, that maybe somebody else could or would, if they're a little greener, maybe more motivated to just push some snow around?
Absolutely. And uh, you know how much the person snowboards. I mean, if they're a really good snowboarder, it's hard to tell them what's good, right? And I think that is, you know, for me, was a big struggle. I enjoyed snowboarding. I loved it. I knew what I liked to ride. I knew how to ride my jumps. I knew, the rail that I wanted to build, the setup that I wanted to build. Um, but that's not always what the client wants, or I guess the rider base at your local ski area. I learned that lesson like my first consulting job at Blue Mountain in Pennsylvania. We had a big budget, tons of rails. I mean, it was amazing. We built so many rails, just crazy stuff, all the stuff I wildest dreamed about, that back home, my friends and I at Thunder River would have been, through the roof about this park. And I was enjoying it. I was loving it. And I was so excited, everyone's going to love this park. It's going to be the best. And opening day, and, I'm the only one riding it. I'm like, what's going on? Come on, guys. Like, let's do this. This is going to be like this. Look what we brought you. Like, your mountain invested so much. And, I didn't take any feedback. I knew what was right. I was 22 years old. Um, and the problem is they've never had anything.
Mm.
They've never had a park even really. I mean, they have, but not this. There's got to be a step from in progression to get them to what we had built at that time. And no offense to them, that they just didn't have access to that type of park yet. And I was building for my friends back home that we've been riding big, awesome stuff for years. We've been building for ourselves. So I got so much bad feedback. Everyone called us circus parks and
Oh,
all this,
yeah.
I mean, it's what we, it was, to them. And that's a super hard lesson to learn. And, for being my first consulting job, it was hard pill to swallow. I'm like, man, I thought I'd like knock this out of the park. I wasn't thinking like circus parks, but I mean, we built like big stuff. I mean, we built like I built a down flat down S box. Um, I built this giant swing set, like 8 feet tall, 60 foot long, like swing set box. We built a big slide, I mean, just bonker stuff and big jumps too. And it was just, they just weren't ready for it. If you built that park at Blue Mountain now, they would dominate it and love it, but they've had that much time of growth in their rider base and progression to get there now. It's ready for
Yeah.
that. But in that era, it just, it wasn't ready.
Wow, what a lesson, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
see, and that's the best part about these conversations is that, I mean, yeah, you and I have caught up and we've talked about this conversation, but I mean, that's the happening. But for you to say that, I'm like, no way. Like,
Yeah.
that happened to you?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it happened. I had so much fun riding it. I shouldn't, I feel bad. I was like, built a park for myself. This is amazing, but I'm sorry to everybody else, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, but you gotta learn somehow. And then I'm grateful that I learned it so early. And it didn't sink in immediately. I was kind of like defensive of it at first, like, man, are you kidding? Like, look at what we just built. This stuff is, because I'm riding, I'm having fun. So I think that can be a barrier for people.
Mm,
Like if you're of the level of riding anything that's in your park and you're also a builder, you're the 1% of ridership. And just because it's fun to you doesn't mean that it's fun to people that either don't have that natural, uh, fuck it button that they can shut off and just, it's all about confidence. And some people can't do that and they still need to have fun in there. And you can build in a way that's fun for both. A really skilled rider can have fun on something that's dumbed down that somebody else can still have fun on that isn't a pro rider.
yeah.
And I just think you just got to be aware of that. I think that just comes with time, or hopefully the listeners can learn from my mistakes and maybe be more aware of that. But
It, and that was
yeah,
Blue Mountain in Pennsylvania, right?
yeah, Blue Met in the Poconos.
Yep. I will say, I want to give a
Yeah.
shout out to Kristen at Blue Mountain. Kristen and I worked together at June back in the day.
Oh,
And
nice.
yeah, man, and that park looks so fun at Blue, like so huge. Yeah, shout out to Kristen. I've
Yeah,
seen that stuff come out of there, and I'm going, not only the conditions there, but just, I mean, it looks just, it's quality.
yeah,
And it's, I mean, everything too, winch, free groomer, and the stuff that's coming out of there. So I just think it's cool. Like there are all these connections along the way, but Kristen's hitting it out of the park at Blue. So huge
yeah,
shout out.
yeah. They got a great team over there. I consulted them for many years, and I used a bunch of their staff for my summertime park programs at Hood, and had a long time relationship with them. So
That's awesome.
good place. Yeah,
That's really cool. Well, and thanks, Marshall, too. Great question. Awesome question.
yeah. Miss you, bud.
Dude, hell of a guy. That dude's rad.
Yeah, yeah, he is.
Um, I want to jump back into you. I want to jump back into you growing up and what that looked like, however deep you want to take us, but
Yeah, for
Maine
sure.
area and what that looked like growing up.
Yeah, small town life in Maine. I got two brothers and great parents, and yeah, my dad worked in the ski industry. He was a snowcat operator also. Um, and so we were just kind of always around the resorts. We had um, a school program that we went first snowboarding with, as my dad was first starting to work at Sunday River. And I started, snowboarding a lot, loving it. And I got actually thrown out of high school just being a troubled teen. I just didn't match the typical education program. Just didn't fit the molds. And my dad saw that and thought it was, a better move for me. I'm good with my hands. I can build things. I can make things. I've always had that drive. And so they always just supported me in whatever my situation was, thought it would be better if I just got a job. And that was probably going to be my path anyway. I wasn't planning on going to college, just get into it, start working. And I started up at the Sunday River as a snowboard instructor for the first season. And my dad came home and was talking about how there was this terrain park thing they were thinking about starting, and he sees how it's growing in the future. And at that moment, I can remember we were sitting in my kitchen in the old house that I grew up in. We grew up in this old 1800s farmhouse.
Oh, that's cool.
And Maine's full of beautiful history like that. And so we're sitting in the kitchen. My dad came home and he starts talking about it. And he's talking to me, and I just my eyes glaze over. And as soon as he said building and designing these terrain park stuff, and man, I just had this flash of just the clearest vision of designs and things to build. And it was just like in the movies, just flashing through my brain of the future. It was I remember it so vividly. And I was like, yeah, I'm in. How can I do that? Can I sign up for that? And it was kind of it was run through the events program, the events at that point, because that was really when they amped up the parks and did, if they had some cool event or something. So you wrote down the amount of hours that you raked, but you were really working for a different department, and they'd give you a little bit of time to go and do a little bit of handwork or something. Or if there's an event, they'd send probably my dad or one of the operators to come help us set up the event. And I couldn't get enough of it. I loved it. I was on my snowboard every day. I ended up moving up to the mountain, and it was, I wish I could have paused this moment in time, because I lived above one of the base lodges in the employee housing.
No way.
And yeah,
wow.
And the bar was downstairs. There was a night half pipe. The night pipe was right outside. I could see it out of my room. And we had a rope tow and a night pipe. And this is man.
How old were you?
98. I was 16.
Dang.
Yeah. And so we had a night pipe. My dad was the one cutting the pipe. So he'd cut it and then we all go rake it, and he loved it. He loved it for us, he saw how much we loved it, and he saw how many other kids loved it, all of our friends, and how many people were coming to the mountain because of that. And he really pushed for our first legitimate full-time terrain park department there. And he found a guy from I think it was before American Ski Company, so I think they would have been our competitor at the time, or maybe it was right after the merger. Anyway, this guy named Josh Lempert from Sugarloaf, who was doing some snowcat work with terrain park building, and so he recruited him right away, and he came down, and that's kind of how it all started there with building a terrain park department. But that moment in time of living in that base lodge, 16 years old, night pipe, fireworks, all the drunken crowd right there. It just, talk about fuel for the ego. It was just such it's hard to even picture that as a reality.
I was just, you took the words out of my mouth. That's unreal.
Yeah.
That was life. That's unbelievable. That's so cool.
Yes. Yeah. Eventually get to drive my snowcat home. It was just all together. Just, I didn't even get my license, I think, until I was 20, because I didn't need it. I lived at the mountain, and Sunday River is people don't know, it's 8 mountain peaks across. Doesn't have a ton of elevation, but it's gigantic, and there's everything you need there: grocery store, restaurants, everything. So I just snowboarded to work. I snowboarded to the grocery store. I just lived at the resort. I didn't even need to drive anywhere. I was so addicted, and had it down to a science of working, snowboarding, and building shapes. I couldn't get enough. I was so addicted. I convinced them to build some rails in the early stages there, and they wouldn't buy me any material. I'm like, come on, give me some material. And I ended up getting a bunch of old lift parts and stuff. So I welded all these like galvanized legs onto these dirty pipes, and used a bunch of Trex decking on some box tube. And oh man, it was so fun. It felt like a new world. There was no limitations. There was nothing done yet. There was no like, it was just whatever you could come up with was new. Like anything, come up with anything and it's new because it's all new. It was just a really great time.
I got a great point to kind of your story there with respect to, you're infatuated with what's around you. You're becoming a product of your own environment. But I've often asked other people, hey, who was somebody that you were spending time with and maybe riding along with early on in your career? And that had to have been your dad for you. I mean, I can
Yeah,
only
yeah,
imagine how cool that must have been just from a learning point of view, but just that's still time with your dad. That's awesome.
yeah, yeah. And until he got sick of me, and then he'd stick me with some of the other old salty guys, and
Just
so
kick you out.
it is a blessing. I got to, yeah, like, just go ride with Ronnie for a bit. Like, you're talking too much. I just need to jam to my music and lay some chords. But no, I mean, he was always so gracious. He
Yeah.
he would take me anytime that I wanted to on the weekends. And I have this other great memory. I think I was probably in fifth grade, and my dad was in an old PB 200, and I was cruising around, and I used to make these beds on the passenger seat floor, with all my jackets and layers, because it's sauna time in there. And so I'd take all my layers off. I'd make this, like, little mini bed down there and on the floorboards, and it was like I was in a spaceship or something. And he was pack grooming with a bunch of these cat operators, and we were doing the base of White Heat, which, to Center River East Coast people, they know what White Heat is, like their biggest, gnarliest bump trail anyway. But it's wide open, and it's got this amazing view up there. And I just remember laying on the floor in the cat, all so warm and snuggled, and I had my hot chocolate or whatever, and just like looking up at the stars through this windshield, and you felt so free, you know. And it was beautiful, and you see animals and foxes, and it was everything to me. I enjoyed those times so much. And yeah, I was able to learn a lot. I was interested, so I was always asking questions and riding along for years. And honestly, I think when I finally got in the snowcat, like, to drive it, be an operator myself, I think it was, I knew too much. Like, my hands can't do what I know. Like, I know what I'm supposed to be doing, but I haven't built the muscle memory to do those things yet.
Sure.
And so it's so frustrating, because I'm like, why aren't you, I know I need to grade it in this way, but I cannot do it. And there was some real rich, salty, good old Maine boy competition about the quality of cord back at Center River. So, I mean, you got called out on your imperfections, and, you know, it was a great place to learn. And there was a lot of guys that had been there, 20-year operators. And I got to just grow up around them. So that was a little bit of fate there, entangled into my career. I just was involved in it and around it every day since I was, fifth grade or so.
That's so awesome. I know that you mentioned it was a family experience there at Sunday River, living in resort, taking your snowcat right up to the front door, all that. But eventually there
Mhm.
were, you maybe reached your ceiling, or you'd outgrown that experience, whatever we want to label that as. And I really want to jump into Destoy lab and the terrain park consulting component, the construction component, all of it. But I will say I do have a couple questions from your dad. And for those of you who don't know, it's Scott Hamilton. And maybe we're just going to consider him a legend in the industry too. Because if he's training
Fair
Caleb
enough.
Hamilton, I mean, come on. Um, he wants to know, and I do too. I think everybody else does. One of the first question is, how did the name Destoy come about?
I think he knows the answer to it, and it's a funny story, so
He
that's probably why he
probably
wants to ask it.
he probably
Um,
does.
Yeah, so it grew into what it really meant to us, but the original uh, creation of the name Destoy was actually my older brother and his my older brother Gabriel and a friend of his Brett Christie, and the other kid's name was Garrett. Anyway, they were all janitors uh, doing night janitor so we could snowboard during the day, and one of them wrote some graffiti on a bathroom stall, and I can't remember what he was, destroy something. He was trying to write destroy something. And if you know the East Coast, accent, the letter R isn't super strong. And so anyway, he wrote Destoy instead of destroy, not on purpose. And so we all started, saying it casually, just kind of like making fun of him around him, like, yeah, destroy it. You're gonna go up there and destroy that today. Just
Yeah,
like waiting for him to like maybe catch on
yeah,
that he misspelled. He never caught on. And by the time we told him, we had been saying it so much that it had grew some meaning to us. Destroying it being like a play on words to destroying it. Destroying it's like doing it with the most fun, with the most enthusiasm, for the right reasons. Like you're destroying it, you know. Um, we never dug too deep into our marketing, but it was kind of our little inside joke that meant a lot to us. Um, but yeah, I mean that's that's where the name came. It was actually a misspelling on a janitor on a bathroom stall.
I actually think that's quite poetic. I definitely do. I think that's pretty poetic. Things happen for a reason. The powers of the universe.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And
yeah.
and
Hmm.
and when you're trying to come up with a name for something, that's so hard. It's so difficult.
Yeah, and we had used it for years also for I mean Destoy Terrain Parks wasn't the first stage of Destoy. We had used it. My younger brother owned a skate shop in our hometown. We used it for that. We hosted a series of contests, snowboard and skate contests around the East Coast, um, and that was all the Destoy contest series. And so, it was something that people had on the East Coast, anyways, had it grown to know that that was our family,
mm,
and we had kind of grown a reputation of doing like, for the heart things, for snowboarding and for skateboarding. And my younger brother raised like almost 100 grand for a concrete skate park in our hometown, small
damn.
town in Maine, just fundraising. And just that's just what Destoy is to us, like really trying to build the community around us of people that love to do whatever it is, like whatever it is. Like if it brings you happiness, Destoy it, you know?
Yeah,
And
you okay with me referencing that a lot? Like in my personal life, can I just say, "Hey,
yeah,
babe, we're gonna go destroy it today."
absolutely, please.
Dude, I think
Yeah,
that's
please
awesome.
do.
I'm not
I'd be
kidding when
honored.
I think it's so poetic. Like when things happen like that, and it's so organic that you can't ignore it, and you've got to just roll with it.
Yeah.
I love those
Yeah,
moments.
it felt right to us
I
every day.
love
Yeah, and
those
we
moments.
all still wear our Destoy gear proud. Yeah.
That is awesome, man. Well, I wanted to know. So big thank you to Scott for
Yeah.
contributing. Everybody out there now knows, and yeah, I think that's quite poetic. I'm gonna use that on a regular basis now. I'll tell Maddie tomorrow morning that
You're
we're gonna
welcome
go
to
destroy it. We're gonna go destroy the river with the fishing
it.
fly
Oh,
rods. Let's do it.
that's exactly the right meaning.
Hell yeah,
Nailed it.
that's awesome. I love it. Maybe talk further just about. I mean, you mentioned a little bit about its conception and your goal and
Sure.
making an impact. And you mentioned the community there, and I think that really resonated with me because I think a lot of times when there's a concept that's in play as far as an idea is concerned that you're always worried about, maybe not always, but there is a concern on how it's going to move forward and evolve. And just from what you just talked about there, it seemed like you weren't really worried about that. It seemed like you were really focused on creating something that was real. So maybe elaborate on that a little bit more. I'd be stoked to hear more about
Sure.
that. And then, just as you mentioned, kind of connecting the writer with the community and the brand.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we'd never really had like I said, it kind of rolled through multiple stages in the skate shop and event series. And then, I was going out on my own with the terrain park consulting stuff. And, I talked to my brother, and I was consulting with another friend at that point, and we were kind of going different directions. So I wanted to, go for it. And, like talking with my younger brother, I was like, I just need someone to like run the business side of it. And I'm crushing over here. I weld the rails, I design them. I'm good with computer rendering. I got snowcats. Like, let's tackle it. I don't, we can do a lot of, and I don't know if this is super common knowledge, but the East Coast is packed with mom and pop resorts. There's so many, almost every little town. I think New York and Pennsylvania are like 1 in 3 for most resorts per state. So I saw a huge gap there of like, and also being able to really make a big impact to like the foundations of the industry of the riders, like getting into those small mom and pops and hooking those, if you're a regular income family and you want to maybe try skiing, you're not going to Killington or Sunday River or some $100 a day ticket. You're going to go to your small mom and pop, and you want that experience to open the gate to those other bigger resorts. And to me, that's the gateway. So it felt like a really good, wholesome place to like invest our energy. And I also didn't want the hustle and bustle of working with the big corporate resorts and all the loopholes and just nightmares. Growing up at one at Sunday River, we went through the big change there, and when the owner of our mountain started American Ski Company, and so anyway, I just want to kind of steer clear of that and dig into the mom and pop stuff. And I felt like there was plenty of resorts to do it, but there was really no like, in 5 years we're going to do this. It was just like, what can we get? We hit the trade show circuit, and just kind of did what made money. So if it was snow shaping, we did snow shaping, and then we started a fabrication shop in Maine. I got this another fate moment, just amazing, beautiful welding shop. And I just went in and, told them, I'm like, hey man, I'm a seasonal thing. So like, I want to sign a lease, but I don't know what I'm going to do. I really only produce rails here 4 months out of the year before the season, and then the rest of the time. So I don't want to like pay a crazy rent. And brand new building too, 1,500 square feet, nice office space. And so she's like, all right, well, for the first 2 years, you only have to pay $150 a month for 6 months.
Wait, what?
Of the, yeah.
Well,
I mean,
go back.
That doesn't happen.
The square footage.
Yeah.
The square footage
I
you
know.
just
And
mentioned.
brand new, never been used.
Wow.
Never been used, brand new place. It was amazing. It was like fate handing us this, like, here you go. You needed a welding shop. Here's a brand new one. I'm like, wow. And they even let us use a forklift to load the trucks. I was like, this is pinch me.
Wow.
Yeah. So, that really gave us the ability to keep a year-round office. And with the goal being for them, at that time, the economy in Maine wasn't amazing either. And places like that were empty all over the place. So they really needed to just show they had some occupancy. So it was kind of a win-win for us both. But that space was so good, and we were able to crank, I don't even know, I mean, thousands of rails out of that place. We built so many, I can't even, I look back over the pictures, I'm like, I don't even remember that one. And there's like a few, but man, there's so many that we built as a team. And it was just my brothers, my older brother, my younger brother was the business. My older brother's the fellow shaper. My younger brother jumps in there too, but and then we had my cut master Noah P. He was the best cut man ever. But yeah, so it was a small team, and we just we really focused on the East Coast. Shipping to the West Coast was too much, and SPT, and they're all owning. At that time, Planet Snow was a big competitor. They were more on the East Coast, but we were just kind of that forgotten zone back there, and nobody wanted to deal with that Ice Coast shenanigans. And I think everyone just kind of overlooked all those small mom and pop resorts. So that was my bread and butter. And I was also trying to lay under the radar. I wasn't trying to, I'm hoping all the guys from like SPT and Pat Melendowski and all those guys from Planet Snow didn't even know who I was. That was the goal. I just wanted to like be this underground shaper, like building dope stuff for these small mom and pop resorts. Um, and it worked for years. It was great. Yeah, and then from there it just started going to Hood during the summer times, and that was kind of filling my gaps in between my consulting. I went to Hood for a salt job the first year, and that kind of broke us into the West Coast a little bit more.
You mentioned something there too that I'm just going to use the word I brought up before, but access. I think that's a key market there for the future because accessibility is everything for participation.
Yeah.
It's not like participation comes first. I think access has to come first. Because if you've got access to get up the road, then you're probably going to go maybe get out of the car and go up to the resort. But if the access to the road is blocked, however we want to make the analogy happen here, but the access for the demographic that's most likely going to contribute. I mean, dude, I was definitely doing that. I was going to the places in North Carolina that I could afford. That's all I was doing. And if I got to tag along for a West Coast trip, I know that I was fortunate enough to not have to foot the whole bill, I thought you just brought up something super, super on point there with accessibility for the demographic. Yeah.
It's so important. I mean, if my dad didn't work at the ski resort, we never would have gone snowboarding. I mean, we had the school program. It was like once a week for a couple months during the winter. It was actually only $10. It was a good deal for night skiing. But I mean, we wouldn't have. How you buy equipment and all those things. I mean, it's not a reality for a regular family to be able to afford that. And I think it only takes once. And then you find a way. If you can go and you have a good time and it hooks you like it hooked me, you figure it out. Yeah, I mean, I dedicated every second of my life to it for the next 25 years, almost 30.
So you mentioned something too there with the marketing component. Like you were saying, you were kind of laying under the, laying low, not really putting yourself out there. But how did you? I don't want to use attack, but how did you put yourself in the position to go, hey, this is what we're going to focus on with those mom and pop places to advertise yourself, whether it was word of mouth, whether it was you knocking on the door? How did you do that to kind of get in there and go, here's our niche, here's where we fit?
It's contagious, to be honest. I mean, you don't have to. In that time, there was such a void. I mean, they're just SBT, Planet Snow. Those guys weren't paying attention to the smaller resorts, but they wanted the smaller resorts saw it happening and wanted to make a move. So basically, like the area around Blue Mountain's a great example because there's so many little resorts packed in around there. So we went to Blue Mountain, built some parks, and then next thing you know, we're getting a call from the mountain up the road. Hey, so you guys doing that park over there? We hear good things, and we kind of want a park. Okay, I'll see you next week. Now I'm at Shawnee Mountain, and then the next week it's Camelback, and it just, you start building that reputation in these areas, and you become the standard of the guy to call. And so it's kind of about, at that time, it was more about building your market because people didn't realize that someone did that, So, and once they realize, and the thing of it is all those small resorts, they're exactly the same. If one resort stacks something up that's better, they have to figure out how to compete with it because they're all so close to each other and their ticket prices are similar. So if these people over here are killing the terrain park game, they got to step their game up or they're losing their clientele. And so you kind of just go and then, bring it all together because you're the only guy and nobody else is really paying attention to it.
Were you the hero to all of them, or did you have to, what am I trying to say here? Were you able to manage the relationship professionally without having anybody take offense to you working with a different resort? There you go.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
that's so cool.
Yeah. I mean, I was never shady or, I just straight out told them like, yeah, I'm driving to Shawnee. You should be stoked because it just saved you half of your travel cost.
Mm.
Like I wouldn't make them pay travel and then make Shawnee pay travel. Like I'm like working together. Hey, we're all a community, and I'd have like a photo shoot day and riders from that mountain would come over. It was more of a community building thing than it was like, for me anyway, that's kind of how I played the middle for everybody. Like, oh, you guys need this? Well, maybe I can hit the guys up at Blue. They can help you with this, or these guys can help you with this, and kind of, cross pollinate there. And one of my other goals with it has always been like opening doors for people. I love to give a guy a little bit of just a little something, little knowledge, and just watch what it grows into. It's like planting a seed or planting a flower. It's like you go there one year, you give them a little bit of information, you share with them, and you come back in 2 seasons, and the resort doesn't need you anymore. Okay, and I hear you. It's a bad business plan, right? Because you're teaching these people to do what you're hired to do.
Mm.
But for me, that's the purpose. We're spreading knowledge. We're building this into something bigger, better for everybody. I talk about it all the time. We talked about it before. Like, I'm trying to produce those smiles per minute. That's the calculation. Like, how many smiles per minute can we create? And to do that, I can't do it alone. So I have to share my knowledge to other people so they can create those smiles per minute. And if you think of it on a large scale with how many people you train and teach the craft or the progression, you're compounding those smiles per minute. And that's just always kind of been my philosophy on it. And so I never really had that like I was connecting the operators from Blue and Shawnee, or Shawnee and Camelback, building those teams bigger. And then if I had an opportunity for a friend that was running a department in Colorado, I'd be like, hey man, I know the guy. I got you. I got the guy. And I'd always open those doors for people, because that's how we all grow. If you're holding anybody back, you're holding us all back. Like,
Mm.
don't let the ego think that there's not enough room for everybody, because there is, and everybody's got their own little niche that they fit. And you never know where that person might be your biggest asset in the future. And I can't tell you how many doors I've opened for other people that in the future had my back and either help me when I needed it, or I was in Colorado and I'm like, I blew a wing hose and I need this from somebody, and I got a friend over here, and it's because I didn't hold anyone back. I only opened doors for them.
Mm.
You
I
know.
love that smiles per minute quote. That's great. And that really jumps into a question or a topic that I really wanted to talk to you about, was that operator training piece.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you, or how did you, inspire? And you mentioned the ego component too, but inspiring the rookie operator to stay humble. And maybe it is the opening doors component, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I agree. I've got to agree with you. That's a massive message that I'm trying to really push on this podcast is, let's share the knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the past. And that's only going to be what's going to transform the future.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd love to know your take on just training.
Yeah, I mean, training is letting people fail. Honestly, I mean, if you want to. I mean, not setting them up to fail, but letting them fail. There's a difference. And I think that there's two ways of training people, and I think the setting people up to fail is a pretty common tactic in training. And I feel like giving them the knowledge but still letting them fail a little bit is how you learn in life. So for me, open book, share the knowledge, and then putting the emphasis on, the smiles per minute. Like, what are you doing this for? Are you doing it for the product, or are you doing it for the process?
Mm,
If you're doing it for the product, that's because you want the pat on the back in the morning. Like, we all want a nice product. We all want stuff to be good. But if you're doing it for the process and what it takes to create that shape and that beauty, that's where like the pureness of it is in the process, not that product in the morning when you're done. The foundation of a good operator is how that shape came to be. And if you focus on look how good it looks. I, you can have something that looks good in the morning, but took you 10 hours to get it, right?
Mm.
You can also have that same product in 2 hours. And if you're
Mm-hmm.
only focused on how pretty it looks, you're missing the process. You're missing the small steps because you're like, oh, I want to fill that hole. Yeah, you're going to get to that hole.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Don't tear apart this work to get to that work. Stay in your process. And that is winning over the ego, because you're not letting the prettiness of it and what everyone's going to think of you in the morning defeat where you are in the middle of the night, making sure that shape is beautiful. So for me, it's always been making sure they focus on what the smiles per minute are in the morning, going out, witnessing it, like absorbing those smiles that you're creating, seeing the riding the lift in the singles line, get on the lift. If nobody knows you, you don't know the person, be like, man, how's the park today? Not fishing for compliments, but because you honest, don't say, hey, I'm the park builder, what do you think of my park? Go sit with some random grumpy dudes first thing in the morning and get some true feedback from them on the chairlift.
Yep.
Things like that. Like, that's what you're there for. And you got to be able to eat the negative comments, and also the pats on the back, I think, are almost more dangerous, to be honest.
Yeah, man, I've fallen victim to that so many times,
Yeah,
where I wish that I would have been given the criticism that I needed.
yeah.
Maybe a bit of that shit sandwich, and just going, hey man, stoked on your effort there, but that thing is it's not right.
It's not right.
It's just not.
Yeah,
It's just
it's
not
just
right.
not right.
It
It's not
looks
right.
cool,
Yeah,
but that thing is
and
whack.
and let's just be honest. That happens to every single person that has ever shaped a feature for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not trying, you're not going to get bad feedback. I mean, I'm not saying build unsafe stuff, but you gotta, everyone builds a shape and they think is going to be amazing, and the sun comes up in the morning, and you're like, oh no, no, it's too late.
Wait, back. What was that quote again, real quick? If you're not trying, you're not getting You're not getting feedback. Say that
Yeah,
again.
you're not getting, if you're not trying, you're not getting real feedback. If you're not getting
Oof.
bad feedback, then what are you doing? I mean, you're not pushing the limits. Yeah, I mean, I'm not promoting like building 200-foot kickers and going, oh, look how awesome I am. But those cool, like, fun training features that are so popular right now, I mean, they're good for everybody. They're an all age, just beautiful, beautiful concept of snow shaping. And we implemented a few years ago, back when I was working at Timberline. We got rid of our XL park and put in just a pure flow park, and we just built snow shapes. And the best riders, are 1%ers, were there with smiles and high fives, and the dads with 5-year-olds were there with smiles and high fives. And it's the future to me. But yeah, so I lost where I was going with that. But anyway, yeah, it's
No, I think that it's interesting to kind of unwrap the perspective of feedback.
hmm
I think that's where maybe I want to
yeah,
go with this. The perspective of feedback,
hmm
because there's a deliverable, and there's then also time management.
hmm
And then between whatever the deliverable is and then the component of time management, I feel like is where things kind of get construed,
hmm
because you have someone's vision of how they would like to achieve it. You have direction of management, maybe even direction from director level coming down, corporate level coming down, however the structure unfolds to get the communication to the operator. But kind of goes back to that passion and the connection between person and the snow and person and the machine.
hmm
And when that person is, I've said before, when you start using passion as your excuse for the failure, that's or your massive fuck up, I I stopped kind of listening. I think the point is that when you when you're that passionate about what you're doing and you have a vision of what you're trying to achieve in the machine, like it's okay if you mess up. And a lot of times I think that either management sometimes feels like they need to hammer home the fact that you are messing up, which I feel like is totally wrong. And I've been guilty of. But when you can literally see somebody and go, oh, uh, that person is filled with joy right now to be in the machine, I need to remember to build them up a little bit. And I'm going to do that this way. And I think it's just understanding kind of who the person is for feedback, but maybe you spin off of that with me and give me your take there too.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot about just reading people. You know, I've worked at a lot of different resorts and, you know, jumping in and out. And you got to learn pretty quick on how to, you know, not exclude anybody from your process based on their skill set. And you have to be able to include them in a way that's productive for you, because I'm only there for a short time as a consultant, but also not to piss them off enough that they're sabotaging you while you're not there, saying how much they don't want to work with you anymore. So there's always this fine balance of like, you know, really involving whomever you have in that position in the process. And that goes for management, another operator, it goes for your riding community. I mean, I think that that's a super huge thing that's overlooked a lot, is like communicate with your riding community about what they want. If you want a program that is self-sustained in social media and, you know, marketing and all those things that you get from community sharing, your riders have to be part of that process through, you know, I did a lot of social media contests for my parks, you know, design your own feature, that type of thing to get people involved. But, you know, the feedback from them to you, if you want, they have to trust you to give you honest feedback, and to trust you, they have to feel part of your process. And same with management. They want a certain thing. Well, if you can find a way to give them what you want, what they want, and still provide what the customer wants, because they're usually two different things based on insurance and rider, you know, style. And if you can find a way to take both of those pieces of feedback and find the happy medium from both, and that's the win, right? That's how you build a program that makes everybody happy. But yeah, it's a hard balance.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, it's a hard
Yeah,
balance.
it's a
I
tough
mean,
one.
it's because
Super tough
you want to
one.
give the riders what they want, but you also want to make the management who's giving you your paycheck hire you again. So you know, you got to be really good at like making the management understand that this is an acceptable thing in the industry right now. Like these are the trends, you know. So you got to be able to put it in words. And for me, honestly, you know, 3D design has, I mean, that really excelled my sales potential. Just being able to give someone a 3D rendering that they can see, like this is to scale, this is your park, and these are the features. I can tell you how many cubic meters of snow that you need to build it for, you know, East Coast, all snowmaking. And will be the price down to every piece of it. I mean, we figured out, I fabricated the rails, we GPS the trail, we got all of it. And that's really so key to communication, right? And same with these paper scrolls that people give you, terrain park managers from, or management to a builder, that's just this big long paper scroll, and you roll it out and you're supposed to build a park that's drawn in 2D on a piece of paper in pencil. That's not to scale. It's no interpretation of how the machine fits in places. Like that is just bad communication, you know, unless the person that drew the scroll is sitting in the passenger seat of the snowcat with you that night, looking at the shapes with you to make sure that you have the space for the snowcat, and oh look, it really flows good into this feature, or that's a little bit too tight. You have to be able to make those adjustments on the fly. And if you're stuck in a stagnant, ancient scroll situation, man, it's tough. It's like that's a communication breakdown. So either come with real legitimate scaled drawings, or give me a pile of features that you want incorporated in it, and I'll figure out what the best order is. Because
Yeah.
I'm there
Wow.
building, I'm there live. I know what
Yep.
fits, I know how my machine fits. And if I'm sacrificing maintenance to try to stay true to your scroll, that's bad communication.
Caleb, I've got another guest question for you, and it is from Mr. Eric Rosenwald. I'm super excited about this special guest question segments that we've brought into the podcast, because it really brings the connection together for everybody that's participating, but it's also fun to have guests contribute as well. Eric's question is, let me pull it up. There we go. Caleb, stoked you're on the podcast. I gotta know, what was going through your mind trekking solo across the Arctic, where a blown hose literally could be a life or death situation? What was your process to prepare for that logistically, mentally, and emotionally? And might I add, quite an impressive accomplishment. And I bet the night sky was a sight to be seen.
Yeah. Thanks for the question, Eric. Always a super nice guy. It was unexpected, to be honest. I was in a moment when I was leaving Japan, and needed some gig, and stumbled upon that up there in Alaska. And yeah, honestly, prepare, but try not to think too deep about it. It's a heavy thought driving 236 miles across open tundra from where the ice road ends to the most northern part of Alaska. Took us 3.5 days one way. Definitely not a trip you do alone. I wasn't alone. I definitely want to say that. And I had an amazing another operator with me, from another company who had been up there and had been out there in the field and knew what it was like, and he was invaluable to my confidence in the situation. But yeah, it was a heavy moment. It's one thing to just drive across the tundra in a snowcat and just make your way across. It's insane. There's nothing. You see nothing for days. All you see is just wide open. There's no trees. There's no significant, everything's just covered. You're crossing rivers and lakes, and you don't even know that you're on them. But on top of that, we're carrying, anywhere from 40 to 60,000 pounds on a trailer on skis behind the cat, with front end loaders and, whatever you, whatever you can imagine they might need in a remote village, that they can't get very easily. So it was amazing, life-changing, epic opportunity. Super grateful I did it, and had that experience. Preparation is just, 6 of every safety thing that you might need. Double backups for everything, parts, fuel. We carried, on board a lot of fuel, and had extra tanks. And if you're in a blow, there's no rescue. It's -40. It's heavy to do, but it's all about the right team, the right people, and the right equipment. They were great. We had 600s, PV 600s with, they put a sleeper cabin on the back, and yeah, slept out in the tundra in the back of the Cat, and we had a nice bucket for a restroom, and it wasn't very nice at -40 outside, so that was some interesting times. But amazing, the night sky, watching the aurora, and there's one moment there, right when it kind of becomes, it doesn't get dark anymore, so it's like this weird thing of Groundhog's Day where you're just like driving in the sun in this wide, white, open area for days, and it's like nothing changes. And but there's a few days there in the middle of the transition where the sun goes down to set, but then it just goes horizontal across the horizon for like 4 or 5 hours. So it's like sunrise and sunset all combined into one long, extravagant sunrise, sunset, and then the sun comes back up again from the other side of the horizon. And the aurora, when it did get dark, was, yeah, awe-inspiring. So all in all, it was worth it. But yeah, it's dicey. There's no way to make it 100% safe. It's just nothing you can do. You're out there. It's 100 miles from anything, and probably no way that they can get to you if it's a bad weather. So you just gotta, yeah. I didn't feel good about the option of the tent that we had for backup.
Damn. I gotta ask too.
Yeah.
So what was the duration of the shift? So was it like a 8-hour driving? 8 hour, I mean, because obviously the snowcat can.
No,
So was it like run out of fuel and then
well,
stop, or how did that go?
no, we were doing like, well, I mean, what else are you gonna do, right? So we were doing like 20-hour sprints. Yeah, or just as long as you could take it,
Yeah.
I mean, nothing unsafe, but both myself and the other people on that team are well seasoned in long sea hours, so um, didn't really didn't bum us out. I mean, the thing that bummed me out the most is just having a yoke and not sticks. That was, my leg got tired from running that foot pedal for that many hours,
Oh, I bet, man.
But you also you kind of needed it because the trailers, they don't have brakes on them, so it's just this 60,000 pound sled behind you. And so when you're going down hills, you have to, like, my goal was to always have like two bumps, is how I kind of like put it, of like speed. Like, so you hit the top of the hill going like as slow as you can, as straight as you can, trying to predict fall lines, because the trailer's just on skis, so it will jackknife super quick on a side hill. So you kind of point across the side hill if there is any, and just hit it super slow. And then ultimately the trailer is going to start overtaking you. There's no way not for that to happen. So you got to time it so you boost your speed to like snap the trailer back straight for like a couple seconds to get a little further. And then but you can't boost it all the way, because you got to have that second boost by the time you get to the bottom of the hill to like straighten out the trailer twice, because it's gonna, it's gonna overtake you at 60,000 pounds on skis behind you on ice. There's no holding it back. So you just got to kind of prepare for those, don't let hills sneak up on you, we had to do a couple multi-cat pulls to get up stuff, linking 3 cats together with chains to pull the stuff up over cornices and things like that. But
dude,
interesting.
dude, yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So, okay, so 3600's all hooked up, towing 60,000 pounds worth of stuff, and it's not like the stuff was, hay, water, and fish. It was like, what was the stuff on the trailer?
Like boom lifts and front end loaders, bulldozers, cars, shipping containers. I mean, school supplies, carpentry supplies. I mean, whatever they needed out there. In the town of Barrow, they only get access by shipping. There's no roads connecting it, obviously. They only get like maybe once or twice a year that a shipping container or a big boat will come in a ferry, I guess, or whatever you want to call it, and they'd get supplies that way, or whatever they can fly in, which is expensive. They have an airport up there. Um, so for them, it's like, yeah, it's amazing to be able to get some supplies in a off time of the year, especially big stuff. I mean, they got it down and they're not struggling to eat. You know what I mean? Like they have all that type of system already in place. But the other things, um, they actually got that snow road so well done that they're actually driving trucks on it. The natives are, and um, I don't know how
Wow.
often they get to do it, but it's a long. I think they open it to trucks for like a short period of time after it's been compacted, and they'll all go down to Anchorage and buy trucks, and you'll see them flying through the tundra on these brand new Raptors, just beating it through the tundra in the middle of the winter. Just, oh man,
What?
yeah,
Oh my God.
yeah. We saw, yeah. I saw this one guy. He was out there. He had been stuck there for a few days, in his truck, and his
Wait.
brother had
The
gone.
dude is stuck there in his truck for a couple of days?
But
Wow.
well, it was kind of intentional, but he didn't. He was waiting for his brother, who was up at the fishing cabin up the river, um, and his brother hadn't been back yet, and he tried to turn the truck around and got himself mired out there, but he was planning on helping get out, but his brother was only supposed to be gone a day or two, and it had been much longer than that, so he'd kind of been stuck there waiting for his brother to come back to help him get the truck out. And he had supply. He wasn't, but he was out of like basic stuff. So I made him a pot of coffee and a couple cigarettes, and was like, "Hey man, like, I'll pull your truck." I was like, "Oh, it's fine. I'm all good, mate." I was just like, "Oh, okay, yeah." I mean, they live it. They're there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He in his mind, he was just kicking it. He
Yeah.
wasn't like there was no stress involved. You know what I mean? He's just like, "Yeah, man, I'm just hanging out here in my truck, and you know, some coffee would be nice." I'm like, "I got you, man. You want me to pull your truck out?" Yeah, I think we did pull his truck out,
Okay.
but yeah, but he
Wow.
stayed there. He didn't drive in. Yeah, but just different. It's a different world. Yeah, you just forget places like that exist. Barrow's such a cool town too. They have like people have like whale bones for like entryways into their yards and stuff. There's just like giant whale skulls in town, and just things you never think a snowcat would ever bring you to. Just it's amazing.
I will say Eric has it's a second part, two-part question. The second question is,
Yeah.
Caleb, I'd like to know if you ever saw any UFO, extraterrestrial, alien life out there during the journey.
I've been looking every day. I mean, we're out there in the middle of the night,
Yeah.
listen to Coast AM, like,
Oh, yeah.
dying. Yeah, it's not what it used to be,
Mm-mm.
but back when I first started driving snowcats, man, I coast to coast every night,
Yep.
and just out there thinking about aliens and looking out my window and just. But no, I really wish I had an elaborate, and it kind of makes me think he's got one. So I have to hit him up and hear his UFO story, because if he's thinking about it, he must have seen something.
I know. We got to get Eric on the show, but
I know, get him on here.
dude, we got to. Love Eric to death, man. Good dude. But yeah, I was wondering that too. You're driving out there, you're operating, however we view it as the individual that's
Mhm.
participating or listening, but you're in the machine, you're out there, and you're driving along in this terrain. And I loved what you described as kind of the horizon with this horizontal sunset sunrise, almost as if it were out of this world. I don't even
Mhm.
know what that look. You remember when the eclipse that came through a couple years ago? What was that, like 2017? Like that
Mhm.
was trippy. If anybody, like,
Right.
yeah, that was cool. Bugs coming out, birds singing different songs. I mean, like that was a trip. Um,
Different planet ship.
so
Yeah.
it was nuts, especially when we were in
Yeah.
Tennessee doing that. And I
Hmm.
mean, at the time, it was literally, it was summer, and like birds, bugs, everything, nightlife just came to life. It was weird. And so I was kind of wondering that as you were telling the story of that horizon, horizontal kind of picture of the sunset, sunrise kind of comboed together. Was it almost like Tatooine, like something from Star Wars?
Yeah.
Was it?
It felt so weird because it's like it went on for hours,
Yeah.
you know, and just driving towards it, but nothing's changing.
Mm.
Like the landscape's not changing; it's all just flat and white. Um, so yeah, it felt like a weird, different planet, and it would go on for days. You know, like it's just light for days. It's like, when do I stop for sleep? Does it really matter anymore?
Yeah.
Like it's so strange. It felt, and just the landscape and the critters out there are
Oh, talk
they
about
have these.
those. What do you got for that?
Yeah, there's these birds. They're ptarmigan, I think is the name of them, and they're these little white birds, but they there's no shelter out there, you know. It's just flat, wide open, like shiny tundra, and so the birds love the tracks,
Really?
the track marks. Yeah, because they can get down inside of it. It's like a
Oh,
windbreak,
you're
you know.
creating the habitat. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So all these birds climb down into the track marks and curl up into balls. And they look like snowballs. So you're just driving along, like, doo doo doo, and all of a sudden the ground in front of you just explodes with birds. And you
What?
can't ever see them because they all look like just snowballs in the track marks, you know?
Like how big are we talking? Are we
And
talking like, you know,
like 30 birds at a
okay.
time, like, because they're in like a, whatever they call them, a flock or whatever.
Yeah,
And
no,
just,
like are you talking
oh
like a
man.
blue heron size into a ball, or are you talking like
No,
cardinal
no, no,
robin
no.
size?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Like a small bird, but like snowball size. They're all like little snowballs, and they just curl up into a ball down there into the track marks, and you can't see them at all. And then all of a sudden, it's just boom, just an explosion of birds like right in your windshield.
What?
Like you're awake. And there's no way to see them. You know, but and lots of Arctic fox, cute little buggers. Oh man, lots of those, and owls, uh, snowy owls, just huge birds, um, and caribou. But yeah, the owls are easy to spot because there's no real snowballs out there. Everything's flat
Yeah.
and covered in snow. So if you see like what looks like a snowball, it's an owl.
What about okay, so when you are sleeping, whether it's day, night, I got like the predators, like the
Hmm.
wolves, anything like that ever come near the cab or howl or you could hear them?
Yeah, no, we were pretty fortunate with that. I mean, polar bears are the biggest concern. They're they're not they're the way they was. I haven't experienced it. I didn't have to, thankfully. But they're more curious than a regular bear. Like there's they really don't have much to be afraid of, you know. Um, and so they're pretty curious. So they're not like super timid and scared off easily, like a black bear, for example. Um, they want to know what's up. So if they see something, and they're probably going to come sniff it. But I saw some a couple around Prudhoe Bay, but nothing close to me. Um, I think it was whale season. I think they were hunting whale in that time that I was there up in Barrow. So most of the polar bears are they have an island where they bring them to or whatever, um, and they that's where most of the polar bears are. They're just cleaning up the scraps. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, pretty cool cultural piece. Also, I mean, that's one thing that I can take away from all those adventures. Japan, New Zealand, um, Alaska, all over the U.S. Even the difference between Maine to Pennsylvania or Maine to Oregon. I mean, all those little pieces of culture, and just really trying to absorb them and be part of it, and not just inflict my culture on them, and just try to be a sponge of theirs.
Well, the wildlife component, man. I'm a big fan of the word component.
Yeah.
I got a I got a great comment about that. They were like, "Dude, if you stop saying the word component, I'm gonna be less intrigued."
Fair enough.
I was like, "Cool. We'll start saying the word pivot."
Pivot. Yeah.
um, oh man, but the wildlife, man. The what I didn't know, and so you bring it up, and I'm always interested in the wildlife of
Yeah, me
different
too.
areas.
Yeah.
And
My favorite, can I tell you my favorite so far?
yeah, dude, go shoot
Is
it, go.
the Sero in Japan. It's this
Uh,
super cool. it's like a goat deer, basically. It's like got long legs like a deer, but it's got like a goat body and head, and it's got real thick fur. Um, so it looks like a goat, but it's taller, and they're like beefy and like pretty intimidating. But we see them um, out there grooming in the middle of the night. Just super cool animals. Yeah, and they're not super timid, so they don't run away really quick. You can really, yeah, enjoy a little time with them usually.
Dude, I don't know
They
what.
just look confused at the snowcat.
Okay, yeah. I was gonna say, are they more are they shy, or are they standoffish, or are they running from the machine, or are they just standing there going, "What
Not
the fuck are
really.
you
They just kind
doing
of look at
here?"
me like, "Durr," like, and then they
Durr.
just kind of walk off into the woods. You know. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're all good. Thanks for
I don't
saying
know.
hi.
Did you bring up a good point? I don't know what my favorite is. If I had one, gosh, probably the wombat in Australia. That was awesome.
Mm,
That was
wombat. I haven't seen one of those.
really cool. Um, I do want to get into the Timberline days, and just maybe, I know that we talked about it a little bit briefly to kick off the show, but you spent a number of years there, and a lot of people have talked about the conditions, including yourself. But one thing that we've not really hit is kind of managing a program there and what you've learned about yourself through adapting to the environment. I think that is just, I don't know if that's a tough one. So however you want to take it, but I would be really
Yeah.
intrigued to know kind of adapting to the environment, and then how did you, or what did you learn about yourself while managing a department out there?
Yeah. You know, it is a tough one. You know, Timberline is, to me, growing up, it, it was everything, right? I mean, it's every video, every pro rider, every magazine. I mean, it's the only place that there was content to be had during the summer uh, in my generation of snowboarding. And so I had such a, it was on such a pedestal to me, So when I actually got a chance to go there and operate, I was a salt hauler the first year. Um, and at the end of the summer, they're all, "Oh, we loved it. You did a great job." And I'm like, "Imagine how good I'd do if you gave me a job I liked."
Let me be really honest with you. Yeah.
Salt Holden's, it's a rite of passage, so everyone's got to do it. But um, so the next year I wasn't expecting it, I wasn't planning it, um, and they offered me a job as a park builder to go back. I had already been building at that point. I was established. I was consulting, but it's just such a thick pool of people that want to do. I mean, it's 10 operators in the whole country that get to run like that during the summer. So to get into that seemed unfeasible to me. But when I got the offer, I just like, whoa, yeah, of course I will. So anyway, I had such respect for what it was, and all I ever wanted to do was to continue the legacy that it was, and I wanted to leave it in a way that was better than I found it, and be a good steward of that legacy. I mean, the things that Kurt Heine and Jeff Flood, and Pat Melendowski, and Jake Engel, all those guys that were there in the beginning of that uprise. I mean, they built a culture. It was amazing. And I was just honored to be part of it. So to eventually get to the point of managing the freestyle grooming department is still to this point just unbelievable. Again, just blessing in life. Um, and so to find the balance between, it's hard because I care about my product a lot. And I also want to help people grow, but there's also a financial aspect that has to be considered. It's a really delicate balance there with all the summer camps and who's footing this bill and that bill and doing it efficient enough, but charging enough, and, trying to keep that whole insanity balanced. Yeah, it's really tough, and to do it justice also, I mean, um, when I first went to Hood, I this is another story of fate. Um, they put me in Mount Hood Summer Ski, which is kind of the, rookie Mount Hood park. It's not public, but it's a camp. So you got to have some skill set to do it, but it's kind of your break-in park to doing Windells or High Cascades or one of the bigger parks. And so they took me up to meet the coach, um, and the guy that was, running the camp. And it was like one of my best friends from childhood that I had lost touch with, Ricky Millett. And I mean, him and I are, yeah, a dream team together. We're thick as thieves, and I love him. He's an amazing snowboard coach. He's still um, out in Idaho coaching and does amazing things. Anyway, so I was blessed with this amazing situation where I have someone that already knows me and trusts me, and I already know him. I know his coaching style. I know how to provide what they want. So it was really great. It really opened that door for me and let me fail without being over criticized, and let me kind of hide over there and really the grooming at Mount Hood is a science during the summer of salt, and prep work and when to do it and when not to do it, and you know boiling it right down to the hour of the day that you lay your cord, so it's the perfect consistency of your cord still exists when the client gets there, but it's not an ice sheet at the same time. Um, so anyway, I was in that situation. It was really great, and it gave me a chance to really grow as an operator at Mount Hood and understand their conditions before I got thrown into the show of Windells and High Cascades. And Planet Snow, Pat Melendowski's team was always kind of High Cascades stuff, and Windells was more of a Timberline run show. So that's was my kind of my next natural progression, and I ended up using Destoy to get involved with that, but that's another part of the story. But just I think what I learned the most from being a manager there is managing egos. Um, there's a lot of it to go around between all the professional athletes that are there for the summer that are trying to get the shot, and uh, the operators that want their chance to be in there. You got the owners of the camp that want it on a budget, and you got the riders that want the best, biggest thing ever built. So I think it's balance. I think that's what I learned, to try to find a happy medium for everybody and not, um, you know, one of my colleagues and good friend for many years told me once that maybe the best thing for me to do is to just go to a small resort somewhere and work on my own, because no one wants to live up to my standards.
Mm.
So I get that, you know what I mean? And I'm not denying it. I know you know, I want it to be, I want it to be good. I want it to look good, and I want the process to be done correctly. And we have the tools, and we have so that's, that's important there. You have so many clients in the same situation. You got the camps paying, you got people flying from all over the world, you got Timberline's bottom line that they need to make money to make the park continue in the future. Um, and the camp has to be profitable too. But you also, it's your chance to make something that's going to be noticed. So it's just the balance of it is, um, yeah, it's crazy.
It's
So
tough.
I
And
think that's,
I kind of,
yeah.
the one, a big question on this show is, when people describe themselves, they really kind of begin. I mean, and this is just from my experience as to where this question derived, but when you're getting to know somebody and they're talking about who they are, they often begin talking about their job. Here's what I do for a living. and here's
Hmm.
then that kind of defines them. But when you step outside of the snow industry, you mentioned something there about being passionate about the product, about the deliverable. Does that have anything to do with your creative side, if you were to define yourself outside of the snow industry?
Yeah, I mean, I am a I'm addicted to shapes. I love shapes. I love making shapes. I am passionate about it. Any medium, wood, metal, salt, snow. I mean, you name it. I want to shape it, and uh, yeah, that's what I've been focusing most of my time on lately. But um,
Very cool.
yeah, passionate about shapes is how I would put it, I suppose.
Very cool. You also referenced to that feedback piece that we talked about earlier. And if you were going to maybe chalk it up to some of the best advice that you've been given in life that maybe you have or have not applied to your career, what would that be?
Yeah, I guess, the best advice um, that I've gotten is maybe not listening to the bad advice that I've gotten, I mean, um, and knowing how to filter it out. It's just people have the best intentions a lot of times, but they don't know your path, they don't know what your goals are. They don't know, just because this is how it's been done doesn't mean that's how it has to be done. And I think that eliminates people from a lot of growth, is just saying, well, he told me I should do it this way. Well, there's a time and a place for that, but if there's room for improvement, one of the one of the ones that kind of stands out in my mind is like, again, different life paths, different needs, and I had a friend tell me in the beginning, I'm from Maine. I'm a backwoods kind of ruffian, scruffy dude, um, and I'm running a business. I'm dealing with corporate ski industry people, and he told me, oh, man, you gotta you gotta look the part. You gotta drive a nice truck and wear nice clothes and all these things. And I'm like, yeah, but I think my product's good. And that's what I care about. And if they can't see through all the fanciness to see that my product, like, I don't want to sell them my fancy, that I have a nice truck, or that I trimmed my beard this morning. Like, I want to sell them a terrain park. And I have a great history and reference to show that I can do that. And if my old Toyota Tacoma offends you, I probably don't want to work with you anyway. So, it's knowing when to apply some great advice to your life, and when to know that they're probably have the best intention, but also you got to stay true to your own path. I mean, if I listened to all the people that told me I was crazy, and why would I think I could do that, then I wouldn't have got to travel the whole world and drive snowcats. I mean, um, so, just advice is good, but just take it for you, not for, don't just listen just because.
Yeah, that's difficult, being able to filter out the bad stuff.
Yeah,
Oftentimes, I feel like it's kind of a smoke and mirror kind of thing. It's cool that you took
yeah,
that stand for yourself as well. Just from a business standpoint, being able to want to sell your brand as is with you as you. I think that's very
yeah.
admirable. And to your
And I,
point,
and I,
if you're
go ahead.
taking offense to my older truck, then we probably shouldn't be working together. And I would really call that almost advocating for yourself, because that authenticity, once you trade it in, man, it hurts worse after you've sold your soul a little bit.
And, and it never hurt me, to be honest,
That's awesome.
like just being myself. And, um, yeah, honestly, it is what it is. Everybody's got their own path.
This is true. Very true. I do think it's that time, man. We got to jump into the push road question of the day. So let's roll that intro.
The push push road question of the day.
That's right, the push road question of the day. And it comes from your dad. That's right. Mr. Scott Hamilton has a second part question for you, and I'll read it right now, Caleb. Scott asks, what was the funnest part of developing the GPS units that you created? And how do you think it has furthered along the industry? Scott goes on to further say, as a proud dad would, I love the story of you being at the conference comparing yours to theirs.
Yeah. Man, that was a really fun process. I mean, it brought all of those, like, I guess for me, the whole point of the process, this was what was frustrating, and this is what inspired me to do it. There was a lot of GPS equipment coming onto the market. Not a lot, but both companies had one, okay? And they're solely focused on being a babysitter for the operator and not giving the operator any tools to use in his daily shift, just making sure that he's doing his job, but not giving him the opportunity to do it better, and that never makes it better for anybody. It's like hooking a GPS to a janitor's vacuum and making sure he vacuumed enough square footage in a night. Like, are all the carpets vacuumed? Okay, then we win. Why do you have to measure my amount of square footage covered with my vacuum? It doesn't make the employee feel good, to be micromanaged and watched like that. On the other side of the coin, I understand why that is a necessity. We're running $500,000 pieces of equipment around lifts and all this other structure. You're burning diesel. It's all expensive. I get it. It's expensive. So you want to make sure you're managing your assets. I get it. But instead of just using it as a babysitter, there's so much power there left that's being untouched and unutilized, to bring the terrain parks into a new standard. And that, to me, is exciting, because again, I have a little bit of, perfectionist issues, and math really matters to me. It's feasible. I mean, it's that you can make something that can help you with your angles and trajectories and building in straight lines. I mean, just that. I mean, how many times do you drive up and down a park trying to make sure your jumps are in a straight line? And then they never are, so just the whole goal of it was to build a piece of technology that would help the operator in his night, yet still have some of that background stuff, so management's getting what they're wanting out of it. But you're also giving the tool to the operator to make them more efficient in their nightly job. So they're getting better at their job. Therefore, they feel good about themselves. Management is seeing that they're doing better, so they look better. And there's just not this weird, are they watching me now, or are they not watching me now? No, this tool's helping me right now as I'm working. It's making my shift better and faster and more efficient and safer and manageable. So that's what was so exciting to me, really. And I think we achieved it. I was excited. I mean, where we got with it, I was super proud of it. We didn't get a lot of units out there before it ended up getting shut down. But for me personally, I mean, we had this GPS waypoint system in there, so you could set an A point at the bottom of your trail, in the center, and a B point at the top. Snap a straight line between them. It would tell you how many passes you were off of that. We had course over ground coordinates. So course over ground is something they use in sailing. So your boat might be facing north, but you're actually drifting to the east. So it's giving you, based on a 360 degree scale, it's showing, so 0 and 360 is north, 180 is south, 270 is west, 90 is east. And so it's giving you those numbers in real time on the screen, which in return so when you're like, you could be 2 park trails over and still be building in the same line that you were 2 trails over, if you care, like I do, for weird little mathematic things like that. Um, but I think the funnest part was using it when I was done. It made my stuff so straight and silly. Like, I mean, everything was within inches. It felt like cheating. I mean, I knew the angle of every landing, every takeoff. I was just shy of the development goal that I had, but I was taking the mapping, uploading it into Google Earth, then into SketchUp, designing parks in full scale um, on that terrain that we took from the GPS. Again, I'm a creature of the process. So for me to just be able to like go down and set dams for where every landing was, perfectly spaced, right in the center, no guesswork, no, I mean, I was cracking, I was building stuff. And to me, that's really what it was about. I mean, the back end is still there. It's still there. Management can see all the idle time and all the things that are built in. It's fine. But if you got something to hide, then you got something to hide. That's on you. That's not the GPS doing it. But at least you can be better at your job. It's like, I'm going to micromanage you, but not give you any tool to be better. Nobody's going to feel good about that. you know okay, so here's a tool. I'm going to be able to see a little bit more of you, of what you're doing, but it's also going to make you 45% more efficient. Sure, I'll take that every day and not even think about the back end stuff you know but if you just tell me you're watching me, that's not going to make me more efficient.
What was it? It
So
was called the Raven, right? The Raven Cruiser.
yeah. Raven Cruiser, yeah. And we went with Raven because um, huge, amazing company. But they also make the most affordable unit in the farming agricultural world. I mean, basically, Raven is a agricultural GPS company. I mean, they do a lot of other stuff. They're a huge company, but we just adapted that um, agricultural GPS uh, to snowcats and made a few tweaks in the software for differential snow depth. The course over ground stuff was already in there. They use it for farming. We did the waypoints, snapping the lines, and then the ultimate goal where I was trying to get to was being able to map it, design it, and then upload it back into the head unit, and be able to see on screen the park you designed on the computer. So you're just basically filling in like it'd be like a coloring book. You're just filling in the lines on your screen, basically, with snowpack. I mean, we were down to, I had cubic meters figured out for snowpack and all that stuff. So it was, I mean, as a nerdy person who loves math and perfection of straight lines and shapes, I mean, it was like living in a dream world. Timberline bought one of the systems, so I had it in my cat and just, yeah, making magic straight shapes.
What was the? I had no idea that you were going around doing. I mean, yeah, it's you, it's your startup, you're making it work, but the trade shows or the conferences and making presentations there. Are we talking like
Oh yeah. hmm
hundreds of people, or are we talking like,
Yeah,
people
both.
walk?
I mean, the NSA trade shows. I
Yeah.
mean, I think we've all been to them, or most of us have.
Mm-hmm.
I taught, at Cutter's Camp for years and doing computer renderings. I taught at the other trade shows back east about computer design and terrain park safety. I mean, to reference um, the one that my father specifically asked about, the trade show, it was just with the GPS. Um, there was basically a panel of the Snowcat GPS. It was myself, Prenoth, and Piston Bully, and we all just kind of had a panel discussion where people could ask us questions. And I got a lot of compliments at the end of it about our system. I think it was just a proud moment for my dad, to see me up there, just a random, dirty old boy from Maine up there, selling something with the two biggest manufacturers in the world, having a debate about it. So
That had to have been pretty cool. That's awesome. I'm sure your dad was
yeah,
proud. He's probably smiling from
yeah,
ear to ear, talking about selling smiles per minute. Your dad was like cha-ching,
Yeah,
cha-ching. Yeah, like
yeah.
ear to ear, man. That's so cool.
He can count for a lot of my smiles per minute, I'm sure.
Nice. That's
Yeah.
rad. Yeah, I'm, along the lines of where I think it's tough to kind of define success and mastery of whatever it is that you're interested in. I want to try to ask this question as much as possible within the show because it kind of goes back to that principal point that we were discussing about, the experience piece and the operator and what it is to have a little bit of that ego and understand that, longevity wise, it's going to be beneficial for anybody to understand that they need to be probably building something for the customer, building something for um, the up and comers, the first timers, so that it's a bit more sustainable um, as a product offering. And oftentimes, we mentioned that the individuals most of the time, oftentimes want to build a park for the homies, park for the bros, park for the people, and
Mhm.
that I view kind of ties right into that success versus a mastery within a career because are they different? Are they the same? And kind of what do you think that outline looks like for someone in the snow industry if they're really trying to tackle that success, whatever that may be, defining it for them versus
Mhm.
mastering that career?
Mhm. Yeah, I think that success and mastery, for me at least, are hand in hand, right? I mean, I want to be, to master what I'm doing is my definition of success, or, I guess everyone's measures their own. I've always personally measured my success on happiness. Um, and I've been blessed in a pretty happy life for the most part, what I've got to do. Um, but the mastery part, I think it leads back to what I was talking about before with, um, you know, process first product. Like if you really want to master something, um, it's really digging deep on that process of how you get that product there. The more that you master um, the way you stack, after you're done stacking a jump, how much snow are you removing from that shape at the end? You
Mm,
know, are you putting exactly the right amount of blade stacks in there? There's no extra. I mean, you got to have buildable surface, but at the same time, are you stripping away your ramp cutout for an hour after when you could have had that stacked correctly? So anyway, I feel like it's just it, for longevity of your career, if you can really focus deep on just how to have a good product that's consistent through all snow conditions and also in a timely fashion, right? That's the dream. Um, that's mastery, and that's what people want to have around. People from other resorts, and there's a fine line to it too. I mean, I've had people when I was managing at Timberline, they send me an application, I have an interview, they're like, I can groom 80 features in a night. It's like, but are you part of a team? Like, sure, you can groom 80 features in a night, but what's the quality? And also, can you function as a part of a team? And that's important to any department. So keeping the ego at bay and trying to um, just focus on the process and being better there, master it. People want you to work for them.
yeah,
That gives you longevity.
I wanted to take it there too with a team because you bring up a really good point. But doing that and defining the process versus the product, and which one do you value more? Are you removing more snow than you need to? Are you using enough snow? Are you pushing a bunch of snow downhill? Whatever the industry is, Could be that you're printing more paper that you need than you need to when you can fit it all on one page.
Right. Exactly.
But I don't think that, just in my I don't think that it's possible to master anything without a solid, we can call it a foundation, we can call it input, we can call it perspective, we can probably define that multiple different ways, but I don't think that you can, and I want you to weigh on this too, but like, do you think that mastery or success of however far you want to take it is possible solo? Do you?
No, no, not at all. No, I mean, maybe it's the 10,000 hour rule, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you do anything for 10,000 hours, you're a master at it. I mean, you would probably be a better master at 10,000 hours if you're with other people, right? I mean, like I said in the beginning, like, I was thrown out of high school and I traveled the world doing whatever I wanted in the snowboarding world because of what people taught me, not because I paid for my education traditionally. And if I didn't have all those people, and I'm talking like everybody from like beginner operators to seasoned veterans that had been operating way longer than me. I mean, I always tried to learn from all of them. I mean, it's really, especially when it comes to things like moving snow, um, things that it's just how your brain works. Somebody can just see something a little bit different without years of experience that can open a whole new way of doing something. But if you're just discount that person's thought because they only have a short period in a snowcat or what you deem a reasonable amount of experience, you could be missing out on a lot of valuable, just different perspective.
Mm.
Um, so I think it's all about connection with other people. I mean, I feel like the one of the reasons for my success is because I was able to travel so much and work with so many different people and get so many different point of views. I mean, at one time, I was building and managing, I think the most was 7 parks around the country at the same time. And, just talking to every one of those riding communities, like that was one of the things that I loved. Not to get off track here, but about the Windells in Your Park program that we built with Destoy was that we were tapping in to basically the program concept was building a Windell style park, at least branding in different parks around the country. And then what I was doing was using those teams. I was taking 1 or 2 people from each team from each region of the country, bringing them to Mount Hood for my Windell's Digger crew. And then I had a crew of guys that were the elite from each resort that were super passionate. They also had influence and riding styles from every portion of the country. So when we were talking about design, we're not just dealing with only West Coast riders. We're dealing with East Coast, Midwest, far east, like far southeast coast, far north. I had a bunch of guys from Sugarbush and Blue Mountain and Buck Hill in Minnesota and just all over the country. Some West Coast guys mixed in, and we're all sharing our own riding styles, our own opinions. It was an open book for all of us. Trevor Borelli ran the program from Sugarbush. Love him. My Digger crew. And man, I tell you what, that was some magic. We had 2 good years before the merger between High Cascades and Windells, where we were lighting stuff up. It was just that collaboration of mastery. Like, sure, one great master is awesome, but you get 10 or 15 of them together, come on now, I mean, and all open and creative. And then after the summer, those guys would go back to their respective mountains and bring that talent and that passion back to their local hills. Also, in the meantime, all summer they're marketing what we're doing in every demographic around the country. So we're gaining marketing, we're gaining creativity, riding styles, and just intentionally put it together in a way that it was embracing the entire country's riding style put into one terrain park. And to me, that's that team. And if any of them are listening, I love you to death. Funnest times of my life. Um, you know, we did some amazing, fun stuff that I felt really, um, yeah, I feel like we made a dent. Like people noticed. So it was a really proud moment for me in that team.
That's
But it
rad.
wouldn't be possible without collaboration, and that's it. That's how you become a master, is learning from people, at least at a higher quality rate.
I
I
love
mean,
that.
there's all kinds of black belts, but there's still black belts that beat other black belts.
It's hard, I think, for people to take a step back. It's almost as if they're I like to chalk it up to kind of that the marketing component. What are we actually selling here? Are you selling
Hmm.
yourself? Are you more interested in selling yourself? Do you have a hidden agenda? What's your objective? Are you trying to just run over people to get to the top as fast as you possibly can? Or are you really interested as a resort, as a director, as a manager, as a leader in cultivating something that can actually, I love what you said, making an impact, making a dent. You're actually listening to learn instead of listening to respond. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think for me, that balance right there that you're talking about, like what it is to me is our job as park builders and designers is to create art for other people to express their art on it. And I think that's
Mm,
a really special thing. Like we're producing a piece of art that skiers get to perform their art forms on, that photographers perform their art forms on, and we're providing that medium for them to express themselves. And that's where the power is, right? And that's where it can either get lost in love or ego. And when you build something that creates just the most magic art on all levels, from your shape to the rider to the angle the photographer got, I mean, there's just this explosion of amazing energy that can be taken out of context if you don't have your head on correctly. And it's so fun and it's so powerful, and those moments when it all comes together, they're so rare and amazing. Like Charles Beckinsale's whale tail jump thing. I mean, it's just those moments that are captured in history of so many different art forms performed together in unison to create perfection. And I think that that's what we should be striving for. And that really, if we can keep it that mindset, to me it fixes the ego, it fixes uh, the quality of content, all those things. If those are the intentions, the drive behind it, to create art for the next person, to create their art, and so on, it's powerful. And I think that that's a mindset that's overlooked.
yeah, dude, that we go down this rabbit hole for a while. I love this. I'm
Yeah.
having so much fun. You've mentioned trends earlier in what we were discussing, but I want to know what maybe you think some of the worst trends in either the terrain park world are currently or the snow industry.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, my intentionally, I've always kind of avoided it, like the trends, and like
Mm,
paying attention to them. Like there's safety regulations, things like that you got to pay attention to. But creatively, I feel like it's important, and I'll try not to. I'll seriously rant for an hour about this, so I'll try to keep it short. But um, I have this concept that I've always tried to stay true to, and it's just been like don't pollute your brain with other people's concepts. Like we're all going in the same direction. Like I'm sure it's happened to everyone that's built something. They're like, oh man, I got this amazing idea. It's so cool. I can't wait. I'm gonna build it. No one's ever seen anything like this. It's gonna be awesome. And then you're like in the process of building it, and you look at your Instagram feed and someone just built it, right? It's like we're all
Mm-hmm.
growing off the same idea tree, right? So someone like plants a seed of a tree, of a concept, of an idea, and it grows, and then there's branches off of that original trunk of a concept. And if you are a branch on somebody's tree, you're really never, you're kind of building off of an existing concept. So it's harder to get to a true original thought that someone else isn't already going to have, because they're building off of that same branch that of the trunk that they saw. So I've always tried to, plant my own seed and let that go in its own way. And I even got to the point where, like, I mean, I love snowboard videos and all that stuff, but I stopped watching them. I stopped looking at uh, snowboarding magazines, and with social media, I tried to filter. I want to see things, but I also don't want to pollute my own personal idea tree. I don't want someone else's limb growing off of my trunk that, or my just me growing up. I want to start my own trunk. I don't want to grow a limb on somebody else's trunk. Um,
Mm.
so I've always tried to, really, it's important to pay attention to what's happening in the industry, but at the same time, finding that balance for yourself.
How do you cultivate that perspective, that concept of thought? And is it centered around training yourself, as you mentioned, with just not consuming too much of what you
hmm
don't need?
Yeah. I mean, like, original thought is the foundation of, like, that's what everybody in every industry is looking for, right? I mean, like, if you make kitchen equipment, an original thought to have a new piece of equipment is everything, you know. And I think it applies creatively in an art form like what we do. If you can achieve that original thought, it's so powerful. And basically just, you know absorbing it but letting it go, right? Like, you're never going to not see any of it. You don't want to be so disconnected from the industry that you're just out there building spaceships. You know what I mean? Like, you want to be relevant, but you also want to be on your own creative path, to stand out. I mean, there's so it's not like it used to be when there was like only a couple, you know, dogs in the show. There's a lot. And so if you're just building off of other people's trunks, then it's hard, but you also want to stay relevant. So, there's a fine balance, but it's observing but not absorbing,
Mm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, man. No, that's a great way to put it. So it's observing but not absorbing. You got to
Yeah,
have that filter in place. Once again, as we
exactly.
discussed earlier. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's the ultimate. I mean, there's books written about it, like original thought. It's it's not like a new concept, but I've really strived for that, to try to stay in my own lane.
Mm. Yeah, and I like that too. Being able to stay in your own lane through deriving your own concepts, not necessarily grabbing on to what somebody else is saying and going, "Yeah, I'll be unoriginal for a minute." Yeah, that's hard.
Yeah. Yeah, it's super hard. And it's easy to just, like, you know, to just build what you see. And people will love it because that's what it is. It's way more risky to be trying to grow your own tree than just building off of somebody else's trunk that's already established and great.
Mm.
I mean, it's fine, but I mean, I definitely put myself in the fire, like like at Blue Mountain back in the day, being called Circus Parks, like,
Ooh, yeah, yeah.
of course, yeah. But I was on some, like, to me, some next level creativity. It just was maybe the wrong market for it at the moment. So there's risk involved, but it's just, you know, I think the biggest thing is just do what's right for you. Some people are like masterful shapers, but not super creative. But if they can embrace that about themselves and ask people that are super creative. It's just, just play your strengths. Like I know not everyone is, you know, into that level of creative thought or, their own mastery of that, but, know your skills and embrace them and choose your path based on
Mm.
that.
Yeah, gosh, that's such a good point. So it's kind of like filling a role, understanding. Is it that though? Is it filling a role, or is it more? Uh, oh,
It's both. It's filling a role, and it's also building a team that has all of the
mm,
pieces. You know what I mean? Like I'm this, so I need a that.
mm-hmm,
You know, and Trevor Borelli was a perfect example. You know, I mean, the guy is the whole team there at Sugarbush is, they're so creative. Like as a consultant, for me to go in there and work with those guys in the early years with them, what a blessing.
yeah,
You
man.
know, I mean, those guys are so creative, and uh, Trevor was in touch with things, and their whole crew was in touch with things that um, I'm not. In a younger generation of snowboarding culture, and they helped design and create some of my favorite jib setups that I never would have thought of. You know, but I know that is their strong point, and so I let them do that, and it works. It's just you got to be honest with yourself about what you're good at and what you're not. And if you want to have the best program with the best quality, you put good people around you that believe in you and you believe in them, and they fill the spots. I don't need another Caleb. I need a Trevor or a Juice or, you know, one of the key members of the team, you know, and we all have our role. That also applies to a bigger picture. That was one of the things I preached in my consulting. If you're a small resort, you know your role. Build a park that is the entry level, and if they want to ride bigger stuff, they'll go to Killington or someplace in Colorado or Mount Hood. You're the gateway. So let's focus on that, and let's use your resources in a way that's versatile and uh, within your role in the industry as a whole, not just your local community. I mean, they're the gateway drug that feeds these big resorts. Um, so know your role. Don't spend $1 million on snowmaking to build this mega booter. That's not who you are. You know. Um, anyway, it's all the same. It's just knowing who you are and what your skill set is and what you're contributing to the industry as a big picture, and accepting that. And that's the best way for financial and keeping your clients happy and safe, um, and also building a great team.
I kind of want to draw into coming, maybe just stepping on the or flipping over the coin and speaking to the other side of it. Unexpectedly, was there anything that ever really happened in life at a point in time where the blade dive was just so unexpected, went so deep that getting back to grade was just super tough and finding that balance?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, a lot of times. I mean, we've had this whole conversation and about all the things that I've done and traveled and seen and amazing opportunities, and all those come to an end at some point. And there's
Mm,
some level of disappointment always when the amazing portion of your life transitions into uh, a new era, and in every one of those moments it feels like you can never make it back to that spot again. You'll never be like on that high
mm,
again. you know and I think that comes, uh, it's hard. So I think the best analogy I think I could explain it as is like my dad always tells me it's like the fence posts of life, like you're walking down the fence and it looks like the fence is never going to end. It just keeps going and going and going. It feels hopeless. And then you look back and you see all the fence posts that you like, oh, I did that. Like, look how far I've come already. Like that, I can keep going. Like I've already done that and I've done that and oh, I passed that fence post. Like, what's a few more? Like, and that's what kind of been a mindset that I've tried to keep is like, man, I'm a high school dropout from Maine in a small town and a family with, not a lot of financial resources. And somehow I figured out through what I love to do and creating smiles and helping people, I've been able to travel the whole world and do what I love to do and somehow get paid for it.
Mm.
So you have to try to remember how blessed you are in those moments, and believe in yourself. I've always been kind of delusional with self-confidence of like, I can do that, and I've always kind of had the vision of like, what's next. And so just believing in myself, but I feel like um, it's a topic that needs to be talked about because I also feel like it's what leads to it's uncomfortable, but there's a lot of suicides in the ski industry, and I think that is a big part of it. I mean, you live such a fun life and skiing and snowboarding, and you get into your 30s, and you know, you realize that you know, it's just skiing and snowboarding, and what are your real skill sets, and how do you apply that to the world? And it's scary, man. It's a scary jump to make. Um, but it's also necessary. And I think it's a really, it's something that needs to be addressed within the industry of how we can help people either transition out of the industry into a, a regular career, or, you know, treating our ski resort employees as long lasting parts of our family that we want to take care of, and paying them real wages and letting them live a normal life as well as enjoying their career. um, I saw it at an early age with my dad at Sunday River, and he worked his way up through the ranks, and then they became American Skiing Company, and then all of a sudden he made too much money, and they let him go, even though he had dedicated 15 years of his life to that company and knew so much. And that's such a repeated story. That's not just my dad. I mean, you can't go to a corporately owned resort and not hear that same story. And until we can find a way to start giving our employees a livable wage and treating them more like the valued family members that they are, um, I think there's a gap there. And um, I'm fortunate enough to be delusional, like I said, with self-belief. So I was able to, make that transition and try to get something going. But I think it's a really big issue and struggle for people.
Yeah, and you're not the first person to discuss it. Kevin Soller brought it up in his episode, and I think it's something real as well too. I'm definitely guilty of asking for too much money, and I'm not going to be bashful about doing that. I mean, for
No,
fuck's
you
sake, I
shouldn't.
got to take care of
No.
my family, and if
Yeah, you do. And at the end of the day, your skills are valuable, and it's the safety of the guests, it's the creativity that makes them come, it's all of those components. They've invested so much time and money into you to become that level of talent and understanding their business and your job and skill set. How is it not of value to keep that person around? I'd rather work with a crew of 5 assassins at a higher wage than 15 laborers at a low rate, you know? And I think that value of knowledge has been lost because, especially, it's a fun job. You drive around all night. I love it. I mean, there's nothing better than that. But yeah, it's just looked at as anyone wants to do it, so it's easy. It's easy to be replaced, but it's not a reality if you care about the quality of your product. Um, but that's not where we are in the industry at the moment. I think they're riding this train right to the cliff. And yeah, I want to be more optimistic than that, but it's so big, it's the human aspect of it is lost as far as resort ownership, except for some small mom and pops, but they're getting bought up quickly too. So,
Well, I will say that I do have another special guest question for you. It
all right,
is from Mr. Trevor Borelli,
the one and only.
the one and only. Amazing dude. Everybody that's contributed tonight has been an incredible factor in, I think, your career. And so we're going to continue the trend with Mr. Trevor Borelli as a special guest question. I'm excited that Trevor wanted to contribute. It was great catching up with him.
Parker, Caleb, what's up? There was a time at Wendell's the entire dig squad called a meeting and sat us down for a chat. Please elaborate what that conversation was about and what did you take away from it? Later, guys.
Yeah, yeah, that situation was awesome. You know, the digger crew for Wendell's has a pretty notorious, there's been a lot of ruffians and a lot of epicness because of the ruffians through the years. But I was trying to, carry us with a bit more class, and I want us to be we're the fun professionals. You know what I mean? Like, we have a lot of fun, but at the same time, like, shit needs to get done. We're on it. Like, there's no missteps, and we do quality work, and nothing else prevents that except for even silly stuff. Anyway, there's some drinking and what have you, and a couple of them got in a little scuffle. Nothing serious, but I didn't want, at this point, the whole digger crew was a Destoy team. I brought them there, and I expected them to carry themselves like professionals, fun professionals. I'm not saying don't have any fun. We're still snowboarding here and skiing, so it's a good time. Anyway, so I was in the snowcat, and I got the call in the middle of the night about the boys getting a little rowdy, and so I wrapped up my grooming, and I went and sat in their lodging. They all live in one big room, and I just went in there like 4:30 in the morning. I mean, they're all getting up to dig, and I just sat in the kitchen in the dark, just waiting for them to start waking up, And every one of them that walked out of their bedroom like half awake in the morning just see me sitting there, like the looks on their faces were like, oh shit, because they all knew we got a little too rowdy last night, and they so I just sat them down. I was like, look, man, like, we're trying to do something big here. We're trying to change, we're trying to really take this program to the next level on a national wide level, and there's a lot of eyes on us. What we do here, we need to be like on it, probably more in aggressive terms than that. But I basically told them that if they didn't get their shit together, I was going to take all of their salary and go rent an excavator and do it without them. And that I just wanted a quality product. I don't want to deal with bullshit shenanigans, drunken shit shows. And yeah, they all they got it, and they shaped up after that. But yeah, it was a pretty comical morning. We all got a good laugh at it after. But yeah, I basically just told them I was going to replace them with an excavator. They didn't get their shit together.
Dude, that's heavy. That's so heavy. Recently you left the industry, and I guess it's kind of two questions. You hit on it already a little earlier about how that adjustment is difficult when you're leaving something as far as a job that doesn't really you can't, maybe it's hard to find something else that's as fulfilling, but you're passionate about shapes and you've been able to redirect your energy towards something that you are passionate about building. But do you have any regrets on that decision, and what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, there's not a day that goes by that I don't miss a snowcat, you know? I mean, I've been an addict since I was in fifth grade, so yeah, I love it and I miss it, but I don't, I mean, I don't regret it. I think it's the moment, you know, again, I'm delusional with self-confidence and I'm not afraid that I can't make a new path for myself, you know? And thankfully I've really flushed out a lot of other talents along the way with welding and 3D rendering and lots of other skill sets that I can be applied to regular life. Um, so, I mean, it's hard. I've transferred into a corporate job now. I'm in an office. It doesn't have a view like a snowcat does. Nothing ever will. So there's things that I miss, but you have to be aware when something doesn't serve you anymore. And I kind of always had this agreement with myself that I wouldn't be uh, a bear in a glass cage, like just in the snowcat because I don't dare to take the risk of doing something different. I don't want to do it just because it's what I do. And um, yeah, I don't know. I feel like kind of like a good analogy of it is like, I don't know if you ever seen the movie like Kung Fu Hustle, but there's like an old Kung Fu master who's like been around forever, fought everybody, and it's just nothing's exciting to him anymore. So he just like locks himself in a prison. He just sits in there, and he's not in there because he has to be. He's just nothing else that really lighten his fire. And it's kind of how I felt at the moment. I'm uninspired by the direction of the industry at the moment, and I don't I don't know. I just don't feel like I have the drive to try to change it, and yeah. So I'm on to a new phase, and I've been focusing a lot of my creativity into making other shapes with wood and metal, and I really enjoy wood carving. I grew up timber framing with my father, and in that life also, and so I've always had a passion for working with wood. So I've been doing that for my creative outlet, and then making money whatever my skills apply to, which seems to be working. Um, so yeah, I feel blessed again, and the fact that I'm making that transition, and it's not easy, and I love the industry, and I love all the people in it. It's just, I don't know, maybe I'm waiting for that thing to light my fire again, but at this point, I don't want to be a disgruntled old cat operator just behind the sticks because that's all I know I can do. I want to do it because I love to be there every second, and I wasn't feeling it.
Yeah, and it's when you're invested that much into something. Well, I'll back up. Whether you're invested or you're walking through the experience of whatever it is, change, I feel like, is not really discussed. Maybe it is, and I'm just ignorant. But I feel like change is not discussed with respect to, you know, if you're passionate about this industry and you love what you do, what is it what does it look like to input your creativity elsewhere so that you can make a sustainable life for yourself outside of that? And I think maybe that component has something to do with the lessons, the leaders, the people that are actually deploying the skill sets that you have in place currently in the snow industry to show you that yes, you're great at these things and these things and these things, but they're also applicable here, here, and here. I mean, for example, let's just use money. You got to manage a budget. You need to put these things in place, and here's the bottom line we're worried about. at the end of the day, the home life is kind of the same too. You've got a budget that you've got to balance. You've got taxes you have to file. And at the end of the day, there's a bottom line there of what's affordable for disposable income. And those, sometimes I feel like from the conversations that I've had, that people are really obsessed with the job first, and then the other, or the after factor, or the personal life is almost just like, oh fuck, how do I fit a day off in, how do I and that's something that, you were mentioning your creative energies of what you're using now, or what you have, and what you're inputting them into. But I mean, I just remember being, when I walked, it was, who what am I passionate about? What do I love outside of this? What have I got to really kind of show off, just to me? And that's just such a I feel, and just going back to the emotional components and the highs and lows of being in the mountain town, and the sustainability and the income and all of that. It's tough. Um that's awesome that you don't have any regrets, though. That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I miss it. Don't get me wrong. Like,
Sure.
I love it. I'll always love it. It's like I live for it. But, I just got to be honest of where I am, and if it's not serving me at this moment, believe me, I'd love to be like, have some project fall in my lap that I'm just like, oh my God, I can't wait. It's amazing. But, you know, I think that's the scariest part, is like you were saying, every single person out there listening or otherwise, they have some other transferable skill, right? But are they going to wake up and just want to go to work? That's all they want because they love it that much. Like, I might not ever find that again.
Yep.
But I have other outlets that I can choose that I do enjoy, and maybe I don't make money in a way that brings me happiness every day, but I can choose how I spend my other time, and my art stuff. Like, I've been selling a little bit of it here and there, but like, I'm not trying to turn it into a business. Like, I just want to make shapes, and if people dig them, then maybe I'll sell some of them or not. But I don't want to do what I did with snowboarding and snowcats and terrain park design, of turning something like that into a career again. I just want to enjoy it in its pure form and make the shapes that come to me, and yeah, that's enough for me. I'm happy. I've been so blessed. I've done so much. I've been all over the world in my snowcat and met amazing people and driven across the northern part of Alaska. Like, you name it, I've done it. I'm so lucky. How can I ever feel anything but gratefulness in being blessed for those things that I got to do? So I miss it, but there's nothing to regret.
I want to know what your thought process is. And, too often companies project a message. I feel like this is just from my point of view. It's almost as if it's a checkbox where we're saying, hey, yeah, as a organization, as a company, we are really on board with trying to help people feel like they are a part of this movement that we have going forward, this message. And I just, it's kind of like the idea. Like, it's easy to talk about the idea. It's easy to talk about the process. It's actually more difficult to execute. Boots on ground, move things, push snow, talk to people, put things in place, and then move things forward. It's way more difficult to do that. So I guess my question is, how do we help ski resorts understand that an exclusive vibe does exist, so that we can break down the ability to provide easier access for not only the employee to grow, but the guest to return? We talked about that a little bit, but you know what I mean? It's like that armor component where you got all these little clicks popping up in different portions of the resort, and it's like, well, shit, man, why am I having to show up to work every day proving myself?
Right. Yeah, I really feel like this is like a bigger industry problem than it's perceived to be. And to me, I feel like it's really we've lost touch with the magic, and I feel that people feel that, that we've turned what used to be a beautiful, amazing, organic connection with nature and people with vibes of just wanting to enjoy the moment where they are and slashing some snow in the woods, or skiing down the trail and counting the smiles with their children. Like, the magic of that is escaping your everyday life of the hustle and bustle and all the corporatism of the world that we live in now. And the the resorts have been turned into this such a cookie cutter, everyone's the same, they offer the same coffee brands and Gap stores in the base lodge and billboards on the lift towers and music playing in the woods, and everything that was the magic of the connection of nature to the spirit of the skier and the people there enjoying it, it's been lost. And that goes back to also cultivating the culture in your employees. Like, the reason people are jockeying for positions and these clicks and all these things is because the emphasis isn't any longer on enjoying the product while you're there. All the perks that were the working in the ski industry that almost justified the small wages are now also gone. I mean, there's um, there's so many places that are just all feel the same, and I feel like by losing the culture of the foundations of what the ski industry was founded on, they're losing the magic to the customers, they're losing the magic to the employees. And once that's happened, now the employee, what else does he have? It's not about passion for the resort anymore. Now it's about, I need to get myself in a better position. I need to make more money. It's not about just out there soul shredding on your break and slashing some pow lines and then giving dudes high fives in the lift line saying, I just found the sickest line, go here. I mean, that's what people come to the resorts for. They don't come to be sold Gap pants on the chairlift, you know? And as soon as you mix those two worlds, what's the point anymore? Like, it doesn't, you're no longer gaining that spiritual connection back to nature that used to be the foundation of why people did it, you know? And now it's just an ego thing where I have the newest skis and the nicest tight pants. It's just lost. The magic is lost, but it's not from the customer. It's the culture that the industry is cultivating it to be. And it's not just the ski industry, it's anything that goes in a corporate nature. It's about the bottom dollar, and marketing and advertising, and low wages is all about profitability. And when you're running a company that large, it's hard to keep track, and I don't think there's a bunch of money hungry dudes sitting on top of a tower in New York City all conspiring about how they can take the most money and leave the ski industry crippled. They're just out of touch. I mean, they're making decisions about money and how the resort is run with never actually visiting it or realizing what it takes to run one. And there's going to be a level of disconnection there. Naturally, it just is the way the corporate world works, but it doesn't really serve a passion based business, which skiing and snowboarding is or should be, which is what we're losing by the day, it seems.
I will say this, the best thing, and I know that each and every each individual that experienced COVID over the last going on almost more than a year now, yeah, beyond a year, that experience is going to be different. But I feel like the biggest takeaway for my family was man, we were going up to the ski resort with a sack lunch every day. Every day. And we did not step foot inside the main eatery building, Main Lodge, West Village Lodge up there. We found the shade underneath a tree and took the lunch out of the bag every day after taking a couple laps. Like that's what I remember doing that's
Amazing.
what I remember doing.
That's
Dude,
what it is.
Dude, that's the magic. When I was at Beach
That's the
Mountain,
magic.
Appalachian Ski Mountain, Sugar Mountain, whatever it was. Yeah, were there times that we went in the lodge and we definitely had a piece of pizza or a Coke or whatever you had? Yeah, of course. But dude, the memories and the moments and the addiction for this industry and the sports involved came from finding the sketchiest parking spot ever so that I could at least be as close as possible to the lift. But taking my lunch with me, riding the chair up with my crew, my people that I was with. And then if I was carrying their lunch with me, which I typically was, I mean, dude, we were outside. We were outside eating it and just sunburnt, just enjoying the stoke. I mean, one jump into a ditch of a landing. I mean, it was sketchy stuff, but it was on our terms, and I think that's what was so cool about this year for our kiddo and me. And we definitely didn't go as much, just because of the the cost to drive up there and do all that on a daily basis and make a budget work during COVID. But when we did, we just tried to. I didn't care if she wanted to build a snowman. Fucking hell! Like if she just wanted to build
outside.
Yeah, if she just wanted to build a snowman and take like 2 runs, I'm going, okay, well, like we got to work on some snowboarding. But okay, yeah, you want to make a snowman? Like let's make a snowman.
Exactly. It's creating that environment that is contagious to people, and that they can't experience at their homes. And if you give them the same corporate slice of bread when they come to get magic, they're not coming back. It just it's fine. And I feel like a negative Nancy here because like I don't have an answer for like how we fix it. And I wish I did. I don't want to sound like a pessimist. Like the ski industry has given me the most amazing life, and I'm insanely grateful for it. And I don't want to come off doom and gloom like there's no future for the industry. It's just different than what I remember it to be when I was a kid, and that's just it. I don't know. It is what it is, and I have to let that change and hopefully it continues for other people to have an opportunity like I did in my time. It saved my life. I mean, who knows where I would be? I was partying, doing drugs, and getting all messed up, and snowboarding came into my life, and I had nothing else interest in anything ever again. So I want that for other people. I want that to be there. I mean, I felt like I had no place in this world, and then all of a sudden I'm doing everything that I love and embraced across the globe for it. And if it wasn't for snowboarding, who knows? I'm just a high school dropout from a small town in Maine. If snowboarding wouldn't have come into my life, if I didn't have amazing parents that were like, yeah, man, just do what makes you feel good and the rest will come. I mean, people don't always have that, same family or the same, circumstances. And if the industry's not there to hook those people, or it's unobtainable to them, it's sad to me.
I do want to know, and this is a very serious question to me because I myself am exploring more of the book world. And I loved your answer to this, but I want to know if you've got any good reading material, any good books that you're reading right now. Tell us about those and what are they?
Yeah, I think one that's helped me the most in my moment of transition, was a book, Buddha's Brain, The Neuroscience of Happiness. And I've always been just open to life and those type of subjects, and I'm always trying to. It helps me, being a little bit more scientific and mathematical, kind of wrap my head around those type of enlightenment type happiness questions in life. And I needed some help to be more motivated to be happy, and trying to understand my patterns of, it's been a crazy moment of transition in my life. So yeah, it's helped me a lot, just kind of understanding the pathways in the brain and the way the neurons flow and the reasons why, and patterns to look for, and ways to change it. So that has been a pretty excellent book.
That's awesome. Yeah, are you an audio guy? Or are you a paperback, hardback?
I am an audio guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's easier for me to consume something like that.
Yeah.
I'm okay with the paperback or the the tangible component where you're holding it in your hands. Love it. But I tend to, just with where technology is, and we've talked about just the experiences that people are getting into and changes, and I'm okay with listening to something and setting the phone aside and just letting it play. I mean, I'm cool with that. I'm down with that. No different to a podcast.
I listen to a lot of audiobooks in my Snowcat and podcast. But yeah, at some point there's like only so much music you can listen to, maybe. And like when you're in the cab that much, you're like, I gotta listen to something else, And so yeah, books are great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I think this is, maybe it's a question of the show, maybe it's not, but I want to know your perspective on this, because I feel that you are someone that has navigated multiple situations through knowledge, and not necessarily the knowledge of what it is to experience being connected to the machine, but being a leader, you've been a part of several different things that have required you to work with other people to get that data that you can then speak to. And maybe drawing from your experience as an operator has helped, but if you know your team well enough and you know who they are and what they can do, it's not as if that you yourself even need to be an operator to present said data and have an argument with somebody. A professional argument nonetheless. But does being a park manager mean being the best operator?
No, I don't believe so. I mean, and I think it can be related also, like, do you have to be a great rider to be a great park builder? Like, I think it's all about how much you trust the other people around you. And if you can build a team that you trust, then you don't have to do everything. So you can be a park manager, but know that you have a great shaper that can achieve what you're looking for, and that the management wants, and your riding community. I mean, they're kind of the connection between everybody, and then that's relayed down to the operator normally. So if you have a good relationship with them, and can trust each other, and also understand your operator to the point where if he says that doesn't work for my machine, you say, okay, that's your job. My job is now to figure out how to still achieve that same thing with some adjustments. And I think that that's super important. It's just that communication and trust between your employees, as a manager. And if you're too afraid to be outshined by the people around you, to put talented people in positions to help you, you'll never be a good manager.
Oh, that's so good.
You know what I mean?
Oh,
Like,
damn, that was so good. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's what to be a good manager is in any job, anywhere, at any point, is to surround yourself with people that are either more talented than you or adjacently talented in another way. Um, and then you look good because they're looking good, and you can give them opportunities. You're not micromanaging them. You're letting them be the talent that they are, and you're not intimidated by that. Them being better makes you better. Having a guy like Trevor Borelli that's just a madman and super good at his job, that never held me back. I could go home and sleep at night, or sleep during the day, and uh, I knew that he was handling shit. I never had to think about it. I knew he doesn't want to do what I do. He does what he does. And if you always give the people around you room to grow, they're not trying to take you out of your position, and that's what everyone's afraid of. And if you let them grow, then why do they need your position? We're all growing together, because now I'm going up because he's going up, and we're all going up together. And that's it. I mean, that's, in my mind, that's the secret.
And I love what you said about the you can't be afraid, you can't be intimidated by people who are maybe better than you at running the machine if you are the manager or the director or the whatever your job title is. They're gonna, that's why they are there. They're excited to work for you, and you're excited to have them on the team, and having them come up through opportunities that you're giving them is only going to make you realize how you can help other people grow. Like, yeah, that was, yeah. Big question here, but it is about the future. What do you think the future looks like in the snow industry? And broad, specific, where do you think it's going to go?
I hope with lots of smiles would be my hope. I hope that as an industry we can find ways to keep the gateway open, to the masses, not just the minority, and let it be the savior for people's lives like it was for me. That's where I hope it goes. I hope that we can all get to a point where we agree that it makes sense to let people in and be part of it. And how that gets done, I don't know, but I really don't know. It's so especially in my moment of transition out of the industry at this moment, it's like I want to be hopeful, but at the same time, like, I'm obviously a little pessimist about it because I'm leaving the industry, and I don't agree with the major direction that the industry's been going, but it makes money. I don't know. It must work for them, but yeah, I hope it can continue to impact people's lives like it has mine. That's really the thing that I hope for the most.
Caleb, I really want to take just a second and say thank you to you for being a part of this. Kind of want to call it a bit of a movement, but it's really just a conversation, and it's an opportunity for me to get to know somebody a little better. And your contributions to the industry, sir, don't go unnoticed. And I think your perspective is quite refreshing. And I really wish that you and I had linked up years before. Felt like I would have been better for it. And I'm thankful that I'm getting the opportunity to chat to you with you right now. So thanks for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man, the feeling's mutual, and this is a really important platform for the next generation. So I'm really happy to contribute and feel honored to be, among the list of people that people maybe want to hear from. So that's super kind, and thanks to everyone that supported me over the years and helped me grow as a human and have an amazing career in the ski industry. And I appreciate all of you. So thanks for listening. Appreciate it.
huge thank you to Caleb Hamilton for being this week's Blade Dive episode. I can't even believe, wait a minute, it is believable. We have totally produced 14 episodes of this podcast. I think my goal was originally maybe hoping that one would get off the ground. So again, thank you to everybody's support along the way. And I want to leave everybody with a takeaway that I had from this episode. There were so many, but I'm just going to pick one. Caleb mentioned that as the manager, you don't need to be afraid of somebody being better than you, a skill set that is more profound. That's why you have a team, and them being better is only going to make you better. That was a deep blade dive right there for sure. If you're not doing it already, I would ask that you follow us on social media. Now is a great time for me to do that. And you can do that by finding us at The Blade Dive on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Please subscribe if you haven't already. And don't forget to send in your push road questions of the day. Okay, I believe in you. Don't be a dick. Fill up your machine with diesel at the end of your shift, please.